Good evening for those that are joining us on this webinar. And my name is Perry Martin. I'm the Program Director of the Digerati Living Learning Community. You may see some others from Digerati joining us. You can see Christian Franklin, who is one of our first year students with Digerati, has joined us. And so this presentation night is looking at our Digerati Living Learning Community, giving you an overview of what's involved with it. And certainly if you have any questions, be glad to answer those during any format you can. Feel free to stop me. I'm assuming everyone can see my shared screen at this moment. Just looking to see if, and apologies, I am not used to using webinars. I'm used to Zoom, but webinar is something I don't normally deal with. So if I seem a little bit clunky at times maneuvering, bear with me. So the Digerati Living Learning Community is in its first year this year. We're about to wrap up year one of Digerati. You'll notice there that we have the phrase rise over run, and it's basically kind of an inside motto, if you will. It was something that in thinking about some of the mathematics work that our students are heavily involved with in most of their disciplines, we hear the phrase rise over run. And in my first talk with our first cohort of Digerati students, as I reflected on that phrase, I said, my view is that as we come into college, we see many opportunities and we see many challenges, and we can either choose to rise to the occasion or run from it. And so much of my focus with Digerati philosophically and leading a living learning community is that we equip the students we have with the foresight and the skills to rise to the occasion. Certainly that includes both their academic work, but also their work as a leader on campus and beyond, and their relationship with their peer students. So if you see that phrase rise over run, know there is an inside story behind that. So again, as we go through this evening, feel free to ask anything more about technically what our program does, but also some of the philosophy and the culture of the program that Christian and others have been involved in building this year. So first I want to give a little bit of an overview of SEED. And so if you've been part of our webinar series, you perhaps have heard about other programs in SEED, which stands for the Center for the Enhancement of Engineering Diversity. This is a department in the College of Engineering that was founded in 1992. We focus on supporting all students, but particularly emphasize support for students who have traditionally been underrepresented in engineering fields and broader STEM fields. We do have significant grant funding to support our programs that span both engagement with students in elementary, middle, and high school, but also in college and into graduate school. For years, SEED has operated the Galileo and Hypatia Living Learning Communities. We are now in year one of our newest living learning community, which is Digerati. To recap what a living learning community is, so the best way to think about a living learning community is kind of a niche community where you can live with students around a particular theme or shared interest. Many living learning communities at Virginia Tech may center around topics spanning from arts or health and well-being, religion, different cultures and languages. But we also have academic theme living learning communities, and engineering is rather unique in the sense that we're one of the few themed living learning communities around academics where we have Hypatia and Galileo that spans all of engineering. And in the past few years, there's been a recognition that the increasing interest in computer science and computer engineering suggested that it would be good to develop our own sub-community, if you will, of students in those majors. but also recognize that IT goes beyond CS and computer engineering into subjects like BIT and the arts and humanities. And so our community is different in that we're open to all cultures. We look to connect students who have a shared interest in information technology. So we have people in program director roles, such as myself, who are responsible for leading the programmatic aspects of the community. Specific to Digerati, we have a course, and I'll detail a little more about that later in the presentation. Um, but again, what we do is we really close the gap between the institution, faculty, and the students. And so, what I'm proud to do and most proud of with my work is the connection I have with students to recognize their interest. And we'll share more about that later. But a living learning community affords an opportunity for more closer dialogue about the interest of our students and how those interests can be developed and honed into careers and life interests. And so the Digerati Living Learning Community recognizes information technology as an interest that's very strong for many of our students. Um, so we are located in Pritchard Hall, and all of our living learning communities next year, Galileo, Hypatia, and Digerati, will be located in Pritchard Hall. We, as I mentioned, span a lot of different disciplines, so it's fairly common to see our students interested in data analytics, such as Christian does, but CS, computer engineering, music production, digital content creation, certainly cybersecurity, national security, etc. So if you hear me refer to Digerats, which is the name a lot of our students refer to themselves, Digerats, in fairness, come from a lot of different disciplines and a lot of different interests, but they again pivot around some form of information technology. As I mentioned, we're in Pritchard Hall. Pritchard Hall is a large residential hall. Within that, Digerati has a common wing, which is the fourth floor. We also have a lounge that's exclusive for Digerati use. And so, as a community, Digerati has currently 30 members. Our first year cohort will be around 40 students, and we'll have about 21 returning students in the fall semester of next year. But again, all of those students will share a common space, a common lounge. I'll also mention that there is a kitchen located just off the fourth floor as well that has lounge space as well. So Digerati, again, as you see Pritchard Hall being a large building, do know that it is a small community within Pritchard. Digerati programming, there is a required 1 credit course in both the fall and spring of the first year. This course involves regular engagement with IT faculty. And so we will invite in different experts on different topics related to information technology. And during our class, most of our classes pivot around those topics. As part of the class, we also do study groups. For example, students who are taking calculus, we offer common study groups with a professional tutor. We will have chemistry study groups, electrical and computer engineering study groups that convene as part of the course. And so while the course will meet and discuss topics, part of the expectations of the class is encouraging students to engage in activities and studying that would be beneficial to their academic success. We do have away from keyboard events, which are kind of opportunities to get away from the screen, if you will, and perhaps spend some time learning some different topics or having conversation um, uh, outside of the disciplines of IT, but with others. We do emphasize development of resume and developing online professional profiles and interview preparation as well. Christian, I'll kind of kick it over to you. You've been part of the class this year. Yeah, if you want to talk about some of the things that you have done this year, as part of the Digerati course, and maybe some benefits that you've seen as part of it.
Yeah, so as far as the class portions, I absolutely love pretty much all of the guest speakers that I got to hear. One person I always love to bring up, well, actually two. One is Bernie Kosel, one of the you could consider one of the founders of the internet. Fascinating to hear just his perspective. The other person is David Raymond. For those of you who do not know, David Raymond is the director of the Virginia Cyber Range and the U.S. Cyber Range. I would consider one of the biggest pioneers in cybersecurity, and was absolutely fascinating just to hear his perspective. And that has definitely impacted the decisions I have made moving forward in the classes I'm going to take and my interest. Um, as part of the class, away from keyboard events, those have been really nice to get away from campus. Always, you never know what's going to come up. Perry, keep you on your feet. You never know what's around the bend. And I've overall, I've enjoyed it. Classes, breakfast. I do love the breakfast. I've been trying to get some of the recipes for breakfast, but my attempts have failed, alas. So it's still on my to do list. But I don't think of the class as a burden. I have never once thought of any assignment to do and been like, "Whoa, I have to turn this assignment in by 11:59." Will never be a concern, and it's always been nice that everything I've done is stuff that I should be doing, and it's just helped to provide you that motivation to get things done. Whether it's for your academics, professional profile, or just social well-being.
Yeah, and appreciate Christian's perspective on it, and I'll circle back on a couple things he mentioned. Um, my philosophy on living learning community is really an emphasis on the two names that are connected with the dash there. There's living and there's learning. Certainly, bringing in an expert like Dave Raymond or Bernie Kosel is part of that learning aspect. But the living side of it is we have our class that we have every week on Fridays at 8 a.m. And if you shudder at that, I understand. But we also bring in homemade breakfast goods. So homemade things fresh out of the oven that get the last day of the week off to a good start. Um, my belief is it's good sometimes to simply gather, get up early, get up before others are getting up, and say, let's have a conversation. And when you have someone like Dave Raymond, who's a nationally recognized expert in cybersecurity, it's not like we're putting up a chalkboard and writing out equations. We're taking a step back from that and we're looking a little more at the big picture and the ethic and the logic and the issues that go into what is modern IT portfolio. Um, Along with that, as I mentioned, as a pure coincidence, as Christian mentioned, one of the people who was responsible for what would become the internet, and this was a project in 1970 to create a system that would become the internet, lives close to Virginia Tech, and we were able to bring him to campus to just chat and talk about what it was like to create what we're on right now. It was rather fascinating to hear him. He's, I would assume, in his late 70s, early 80s, but he talked about creating something that has never been cut off yet. That's fascinating to listen to. And I will also add that he was fascinated to hear about our students. He came and flew drones with us, with a small group of us at one of our Away from Keyboard events. Um, so again, the intent with IT is really to encourage that intellectual curiosity, a curiosity that we find spans beyond the first year student in college, but includes people who have since retired from their careers or maybe mid-career, and we try to engage with those individuals and talk about the direction that IT is going, whether that's AI or deep fakes, Bitcoin or cybersecurity, video games. All of those have been topics we've talked about in class with experts. And so, what I try to do with our agenda with Digerati is to bring in those hot topics and at least expose students to where those topics are headed. One of the things that I'll get into our philosophy, and I've hit on this some, but the picture you see here, just to give you a little bit, this was actually a recent class where we did some speed job interviews. And so one of the things we're finishing up the semester with right now is all Digerati students are doing a mock job application or a mock research proposal or a mock startup proposal. And so what we do is we help our students recognize how they can develop their creative ideas and their skills and put those into a marketplace, if you will, a marketplace not necessarily in the sense of a buying and selling marketplace, but a marketplace of the exchange of ideas. So if Christian, for example, has a brilliant idea for research, how does he engage with others to maybe get funding for that research? Or as Christian did last week, he has an idea for a startup that he shared with us, and it gives a chance for him to think, how would I share this idea with others in a way that could be influencing? And so part of our course is having students help with resume, with writing for a research proposal or a startup proposal, and then certainly making a sales pitch. This is one of our 8 a.m. classes where you can see us lined up in the lounge there and selling our ideas to each other. Um, I hope I underscore in what I do a student success focus. Um, our students in the first semester of college had a median GPA of 4.45, which was zero point 0.2 points higher than the average first year student in engineering. So part of what I do in my role here is I keep up with how grades are going for our students. My interest is in helping the students take charge of their academics, but also get sound advice on where they go from here. Last week we had, for example, a guest speaker from the Innovation Campus that Virginia Tech hosts in the Northern Virginia area. That conversation got into opportunities in graduate school. We discussed how students can potentially pick up a master's degree uh, at the minimum or at the maximum, perhaps just 1 year after finishing their undergrad degree. They can have dual enrollment and dual credits to get a master's degree. So that student success focus is looking at someone such as Christian that may say, hey, where do you look at in your future? How can we help bring that into focus for you? We do try to develop a community of peers. I think you'll find in the community, being a small community, we are on group me. We send, there's plenty of inside jokes that are done in Digerati, all in good humor. Certainly, there's interdisciplinary perspectives. One of our students has a hobby of beekeeping, and while you might not expect a lot of CS students to discuss beekeeping, it's been a good learning opportunity. So it's been good to look at interdisciplinary interests and perspectives, whether it's music or nature, etc. We try to bring balance in student life. I do spend time meeting one-on-one with our students with regularity, looking at how things are going in terms of their workload, any kind of stress factors. And then certainly, as I've alluded to, we look at the role of IT in society as well. The Digerati application, just to give you some of the technical aspects of it, and the QR code does take you to the page where you can find the application. But once you have accepted your offer to back and have signed a housing contract, you can choose from among a slate of themed living learning communities, Digerati being among those across campus. We ask a basic essay question, and we do offers of admission on a rolling basis. Particularly in the essay questions, what I'm most am interested in is looking at the student interest very specifically in IT. Um, I do not have to see that somebody's majoring in computer science or computer engineering whatsoever. What I'm interested in is the kind of work a student has done in the past and the kind of work a student is interested in doing in the future. That gives me some indication that the course we do and the topics we may discuss in class are of relevance to the student. It also gives me an idea to recognize how Digerati can help. how we can bring peers into help. Next year, Christian will be a returner in the community. Part of that role will be a connection between these returners and first year students. So, if you have a particular interest in a certain topic, there is an opportunity to connect you to a student that may have a similar interest, and discuss, where you want to go with that. It can be as deep as a conversation on what you want to do in life. It can be as simple as, how do I solve this problem in calculus 2? But engagement with peers is something there that can happen very organically, but at that with some intentionality that we're putting students that likely would fit together and connect together. And I think we've done a good job of that in our first year. Um, I've gone through kind of the there. I do want to close with a little bit of just maybe things that don't get captured in slides, but that I think are rather important. Um, I try to keep, for the most part, a weekly newsletter going for our students. I call it the Weekly Tangent. The Weekly Tangent is a combination of upcoming events and occasionally some good fun ribbing of people in the community, and occasionally just me rambling. Now, before you roll your eyes and wonder why I would do that, I think it's important sometimes for students to unplug from the formulas, from the math, from the equations, and look at things from more of a humanistic perspective. In the last couple tangents that I shared some stories actually from my youth, that hopefully stories that had a lesson in them. Um, I view my job in many ways as kind of the chief cheerleader of our students. And sometimes that cheerleading requires putting out lessons learned. Um, as somebody who is perhaps the age of many of the parents who are maybe perhaps listening into this, I certainly have lived a life of doing different things in my career. As a parent, have certainly had the perspective of guiding my own children in their growth. I'm a coach, by the way. I just came off of the softball field before getting here. I coach kids in softball. But all of these have brought in life lessons that I think no matter what major it is, it's good sometimes to keep in mind the living part of a living learning community. How do you life? Um, One of the AFK events I hosted just about a month ago, I invited students to come out, and in a kind of a living session, we actually learned how to change a tire. And I recognize that many times a student who is only a couple years into driving may have not had the unfortunate event of having a flat tire, but sometimes it may be good to practice that in a setting where you don't have to worry about your own safety or figuring something out. I try to do things that educate our students on things that are good life skills to have, whether it's study skills, whether it's professional skills of how to interview, or whether it's just basic life skills of what happens if I have a dead battery on my car. We learned how to jump start a car. We did those things there to say, okay, these are things that as you grow up and grow more independent, these are things that it's good to learn. That is my philosophy. I care for each student. We actually do in our newsletter a pet of the week. So I frequently showcase our students' pets in our newsletter. I always try to bring in reminders of home and the importance of home and the importance of family. I don't see Digerati as ever anything that could replace home or family for what students come from. But I do think it's important that there are relationships that are meaningful in Digerati and caring relationships. And so if Christian gets sick, I'm going to ask how he's doing. If our students are struggling with a class, I'm going to ask what we can do to help. If our student has a flat tire, we're going to see who can help. I'm very proud that on my phone here, if you can see it, that we have regular nightly group chats that basically cover everything from free pizza in the lounge to can somebody help me with an assignment. to some type of uh, issue that only college students would probably fully appreciate. So that's a little bit of our world in Digerati. Do encourage you to apply. We have, as I mentioned, about 40 slots open for first year students. We accept those on a rolling basis through about the first week of June. The information you see there on the screen gets to me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. If you have any questions at this time, feel free to ask them. I'm going to stop sharing my screen um, and open it up to our attendees. You can raise your hand or you can post something in a chat, and either Christian or myself be happy to answer a question for you. And if you don't have any questions, that's perfectly fine. Feel free, like I said, to raise a hand anytime. I will tell you that one of the things I would look forward to next year with Digerati, we continue to develop our lounge. So our lounge, while it's exclusively ours, still has room for improvements, and so we're going to be adding some new amenities in it. I'm looking to develop some gaming space in there. I'm interested in setting up a community printer, which we just received, actually came in this week. So we're going to have a community printer in there. Music production is a common interest of many of our students. So I'm interested in bringing in some things such as a keyboard that could be useful for next year. I myself play music, so I'm always interested to hear students' creative abilities. We did visit a recording studio this year on one of our AFK events away from keyboard, and that went incredibly well. So, and I see Christian just posted. He says he has the idea of a Minecraft server. That's a great idea, Christian. Yeah, I think we could definitely get into something like that. What we want to be is a place where those that are interested in gaming, interested in coding, interested in content creation or podcasting have a common space and common interest. So we're going to continue to develop that over the next year. But again, we have our own little kind of niche community already. And I think certainly the thing that's well established is the culture of the community. I have not seen any questions yet. Do put something in the chat or raise a hand if you have anything. Christian, is there anything you want to cover that I haven't touched on yet? Uh, Feel free to chime in here.
Yeah, well, I could probably spend 3 hours uh, giving people opinions on college life. There's plenty of things I would tell myself some months ago before I came here, but I think that way too long to send a webinar. But as far as Digerati goes, I would like to point out that these guests we bring in for our morning classes, I'm avoiding the word lectures because they're not lectures. I would like to point out that the format is it's a conversation. When David Raymond came in, I my original vision of David Raymond was him sitting up in like a high chair, 10 feet above the ground. Um, but he first thing he came in and he sat in a circle with all of us, and he asked us what our interests, and we had a conversation, which was very nice. Same thing with Bernie Cosell, and you don't consider yourself like they're equals. Like these people have changed the world, but they are always willing to to sit down with you to give you advice and talk to you as if almost as if you're friends.
Yeah, yeah.
And, amazing people. And as far as Digerati, I've had chats quite frequently, especially with Zenek. She's one of the members of our community. I'm always telling her that she needs to get the Digerati Lounge spiffy up, especially since she's going to be an SL. So I try to burden her with that. But we have a lot of good ideas. That a lot of them we haven't told Perry yet. He'll find out in the near future. The Minecraft one was one I was going to say. I had the idea the other day. But as said, we're a very diverse group of people. I myself am very technical. I do very well in academics, but I'm also very unaware when it comes to things like video games, which a lot of the people in our community are good at. Music, a lot of there's actually quite a few musicians in Digerati, um, and it's as far as expanding your horizons, it's phenomenal for that. I said I'm very technical. I can tell you a lot about 10 different programming languages, their implementations, but as far as how to play Minecraft, I probably can't tell you that. Um, so it's we have a lot of fun. It's a good community, and I think anyone that joins would definitely benefit from it. It's definitely the best decision I think I've made as far as tech goes.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your insights, Christian. And again, Christian is one of the returners you'll meet next year. If you choose to come into us, we'd love to have you. I think you'll find a place that's very caring. We're a small enough community where you're going to matter to us. Your well-being's going to matter. Your goals are going to matter. Your interests are going to matter. And again, I think that's the part of my job I enjoy the most is really connecting with the students. I grew up around the university, and so I'm one of the old timers these days, having been at Tech since the '90s, actually. So, what I can help with as you come to Tech is helping you navigate. What is your path? You've got to choose your vehicle and your route there. But I can kind of help you navigate and see where you're going from here and see the opportunities that are there. And along with me, you're going to have plenty of older students who've been through it who will also help you with that navigation. So I encourage you to check us out. By all means, look up Digerati at vt.edu. We hope you'll consider being a Digerat next year. And we also invite you to invite friends. If this is something for you and you have a potential roommate that also has similar interests, by all means, we certainly are glad to reach out and build those connections where you can bring others in the community and help us build the community as we go. That is all I have for this evening. I do thank you all for your time tonight. And again, do reach out if you have any questions. And again, have a good evening and hope to see you next year. Take care.